Good morning, everyone. Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. My name is Jeff Piercy, and I'm delighted to serve as your worship associate today and to welcome you into this space. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies here. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit here. We welcome all you are bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We welcome all of you. We extend a special welcome to each guest among us. We invite our guests to fill out a welcome card located in the pew rack in front of you and drop it in the offering plate later in the service. Guests may also pick up a welcome packet at the back of the sanctuary, where folks will also find hearing assist devices and braille hymnals. A fragrance-free area is located to the front side of the chancel in the first few pews. If you are a visiting family, including children or youth, after the time for all ages that's noted in your order of service, please join the children's recessional and head across the hall to the common room. There you will be greeted by someone who will orient you to a religious education. Immediately following the service, everyone is invited for coffee and conversation in the common room. Again, my name is Jeff, and you can come and talk to me at the guest table there. As a way to engage at First Church, I invite everyone to explore the announcements insert in the numerous opportunities that are available here. In particular, let me draw your attention to several of the announcements. Our forum today is Unlearning Racism, Coded Language, Bias, and Microaggressions, presented by Dynasty Caesar, racial justice trainer for YWCA Southeast Wisconsin. Join us in Max Otto Hall on the second floor at 10:10 a.m. Other announcements are making decisions about the right thing to do can be a complicated process. Join us for the adult spiritual development class, Doing the Most Right Thing, a review of ethics and morality, with Ken Solis beginning Thursday, January 30th. For more information, see page 3 in your announcements insert and register online at the religious education table during the coffee hour. Looking for an opportunity to put your values into action? Join our denomination's effort to you the vote. In the coming election year, our Social Justice Council welcomes your participation in a national online training event at First Church next Sunday, January 12th at 3 p.m. Senior women are invited to join our Swans group at the Maharaja restaurant for lunch today at 12:45. We have a new Sunday parking lot located next to the post office on Van Buren and Juneau. It's complicated. Follow the prompts to enter your license number, and our First Church code is 1842. Clever. That's the date we were founded. For free parking on Sundays. Finally, please silence any electronic devices for the remainder of the service. Once again, I welcome you to First Church by inviting you to join me in the unison reading of our mission, which is printed in your order of service. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. I'd like to invite our chalice lighter, Kelly Moore Brands, to help me light the chalice.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you in the new year. These opening words are called "Let Us Be Real" by Scott Taylor. You can remove it now, that mask handed to you by the world. You can stop repeating, "I'm fine, I'm fine," when all your heart wants to say is, "I hurt." You can forget those hoops, let someone else jump through them for a change. Here, the striving can stop, the pretending can be put away. Here, just for a moment, let us be real. Please rise in body or spirit to sing hymn 1011 in the Teal hymnal, Return Again.
The story I have for you today is called The Empty Pot by Demi. A long time ago in China, there was a boy named Ping who loved flowers. Anything he planted burst into bloom. Up came flowers and bushes and even big fruit trees, if by magic. Now everyone in the kingdom loved flowers too, and they planted them everywhere, and the air smelled like perfume. The emperor loved birds and animals, but flowers most of all, and he tended his own garden every day. Now the emperor was growing very old, and he needed to choose a successor for his throne. Who would the successor be? And how would the emperor choose? Now, because the emperor loved flowers so much, he decided he would let the flowers choose. The next day, a proclamation was issued. All the children in the land were to come to the palace, and there they would be given very special flower seeds by the emperor himself. Whoever can show me their best in a year's time will succeed me to the throne. This news created great excitement throughout the land. Children from all over the country swarmed to the palace to get their flower seeds. All the parents wanted their children to be chosen emperor, and all the children wanted to be chosen too. When Ping received his seed from the emperor, he was the happiest child of all. He was sure he could grow the most beautiful flower. Ping filled a flower pot with rich soil. He planted the seed in it very carefully, and he watered it every day. He couldn't wait to see what would grow and sprout and blossom. And day after day passed, but nothing grew in his pot. Ping was very worried, so he put new soil in a bigger pot and he transferred the seed into the rich black soil. Another 2 months went by and he waited, but still nothing happened. By and by, a whole year passed. Spring came, and all the children put on their best clothes to go greet the emperor, and they rushed to the palace with their beautiful flowers, eagerly hoping to be chosen. Ping was ashamed of his empty pot. He thought the other children will laugh at him, for once he did not get his flower to grow. A clever friend ran by holding a big plant. "Ping," he said, "you're not really going to go to the emperor with an empty pot now, are you? Couldn't you grow a big flower like mine?" "Well, I've grown lots of flowers, even ones bigger than yours. It's the seed, it just won't grow." Ping's father overheard this and said, "You did your best. You did what you said you would do to try and grow your seed, and your best is good enough to present to the emperor." So, holding the empty pot in his hand, Ping went to the palace. Now the emperor was looking over the pots very slowly, one by one. How beautiful all the flowers were. But the emperor, he was frowning and not saying a word. And finally he came to Ping. Ping hung his head in shame, expecting to be punished. And the emperor said, "Why did you bring me an empty pot?" And Ping started to cry, and he replied, "I planted the seed you gave me, and I watered it every day, and it didn't sprout. I put it in a better pot with better soil, but it still didn't sprout. And I tended it all year long, but nothing grew. So today I had to bring you an empty pot without a flower. It was the best I could do." When the emperor heard these words, a smile slowly spread over his face, and he put his arm around Ping, and he exclaimed to one and all, "I have found him! I have found the one person worthy of being the emperor. Where you got your seeds from, I do not know, for the seeds I gave you had all been cooked. So it was impossible for any of them to grow. Ping is the only child who was honest and has shown integrity that is needed to care and to ask for nothing in return. Only Ping did what he said he would do. I admire Ping's great integrity to appear before me with the empty truth, and now I will reward him with my entire kingdom and make him emperor of all the land." The end. Please rise in body and spirit as you are able for our next hymn, One More Step, number 168 in the gray hymnal. The children and the religious education volunteers will follow me to the common room after the first verse.
Please be seated. As we enter into a time of spoken meditation, followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life. I'd invite you to find your body in the pew or the chair. Get yourself comfortable. Notice your feet on the floor, connected to earth. Bring your attention to your breathing. Allow the air to come in, to go out. Open your awareness. Open your awareness to all that you love, your deepest yearnings and highest resolve. We gather today with many things weighing on our hearts. Loved ones who are ill, bushfires in Australia, floods in Indonesia, our country's escalation of hostilities with Iran, the danger of war. We send love to Iranian American families living in fear, to civilians and soldiers on edge. We pray that our leaders find wisdom and temperance and the courage to work on the complex roots of conflict. In the fear and anxiety of this day, may these words by George Campbell bring comfort. I hold the splendid daylight in my hands, inwardly grateful for another day. Thank you, life. Daylight, like a fine fan spread from my hands. Daylight, like a scarlet poinsettia. Daylight, like yellow cassia flowers. Daylight, like clean water. Daylight, like green cacti. Daylight, like seas sparkling with white horses. Daylight, like sun-strained blue sky. Daylight, like a sacrament in my hands. May it be so.
On July 20th, 1981, I took my last drink. My first day sober was the following day, July 21st, 1981. There was an early stage to my drinking when I was capable of doing anything, no matter how illegal, vile. I ran a stripper bar. I sold drugs. I was a thief. I abused every single person who cared about me. I was a scared man pretending to be a tough one. Over time, my drinking progressed, but I matured into a more respectable and legal set of jobs. What continued was the gradual erosion of anything close to integrity. Everything about me was a facade, pretending everything was all right. Near the end, I would begin some days promising myself that I would not drink that day. But there was a small internal voice that would scoff and know that by the end of that day, I would be drunk and probably black out. Addiction takes away your ability to choose. It takes away your integrity. What I'm about to tell you may be a strange concept for many Unitarians, but those of you who are in recovery, and I suspect many others, may understand. On that July day, 38 years ago, I was visited by a period of God's grace. Prior to that, I had no choice. My addiction had taken over my ability to not drink, and I had no integrity. I was so desperate that in that moment I would do anything to not continue to feel the way I did. By the end of that day, I knew I would either kill myself or make a change. I was visited by a period of the grace of God. I did not deserve it. I had certainly not earned it. I also can't explain its mystery. But internally, I knew I had better take advantage of it. So I asked for help. Here I found that God's grace does not absolve you from having to take action. My last night drinking, I woke up in bed soaked with the beer that I had spilled all over me in the bed. I stumbled into the bathroom and opened the phone book for the number for Alcoholics Anonymous because I knew I would have blacked out any memory of the misery. When I got up the next day, I was too miserable to shave. I tore the page out and later called that number. It may have been the worst AA call in history. I cannot quit drinking by myself. Can you help me? I said. You're going to have to go to treatment, honey, the person said on the hotline, and she hung up. I looked in the phone book and found treatment centers. I called. We can get you in a week from Tuesday, I was told. I'll be dead a week from Tuesday, I answered. Come in right now. Someone will see you. I went in and told the counselor, I am an alcoholic and I cannot quit drinking on my own. Can you help me? He said, well, we'll need to do an assessment. I committed to using really small words and speaking slowly. At the end, he said, well, you're an alcoholic, which of course I already knew. Just then, a senior counselor, David Lambert, came in and introduced himself. He said he could get me into his intensive outpatient program the next night and that I should go to a meeting that night. I balked and said I wanted to wait a week. He said, okay, but you'll either be drunk or dead by next week. He got it. I went to a meeting that night and started treatment the next. I did what other recovering people told me to do. For the first time on July 21st, 1981, I said I would not drink that day and I asked people to help me. And the scoffing voice disappeared. The obsession with manipulating to be able to drink, the drinking, and then the feeling of shame of being out of control and my behavior while I was drinking were all lifted. I had choice where before I had none. I could choose to do the next right thing. It was a new freedom. My life was still out of control, and I continued to struggle for many years. And I've depended on the wisdom of others countless times through 12-step programs. But gradually, a sense of integrity returned. I began to do what I said I would do. I quit pretending. I began to more consistently do the next right thing. My integrity depends on that choice, but is always a choice, a beautiful, ecstatic choice.
We hold the splendid daylight in our hands, each and every one of us. What to do with this unearned gift? How shall we spend the light in this brand new day, this brand new year, this brand new decade? So much pressure at the beginning of a new year to live up to our own high expectations, to find and do the next right thing. The year is so new, and so much is at stake. Yet every day we awake, thank you, life. We get to try again to live lives of integrity. For integrity doesn't happen all at once. It takes practice. It's a choice. A sometimes difficult, sometimes ecstatic choice. We can't have integrity unless we practice living it. And we're not always going to achieve it. Who's there? What is integrity? the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, the practice of bringing your words and your actions into congruence, acting consistently on your beliefs and values, doing what you say you'll do. So Young Kang, a young global leader of the World Economic Forum, wrote an article for Huffington Post called "The True Meaning of Integrity." She wrote, "Integrity stems from the Latin word integer, which means whole and complete. Integrity requires an inner sense of wholeness and consistency of character. When you are in integrity, people should be able to visibly see it through your actions, words, decisions, methods, and outcomes. When you are whole and consistent," she continues, "there is only one you. You bring that same you wherever you are, regardless of the circumstance. You don't leave parts of yourself behind. You don't have a work you, a family you, and a social you. You are you all the time." Given the real definition of integrity, we recognize that it is actually extremely difficult to be in integrity 100% of the time. We aspire to be in integrity with what we believe, but sometimes we mess up. Sometimes our emotions get the best of us, and we are unable to intentionally manage our behavior and actions. Sometimes we don't give ourselves permission to be our true selves out of fear of what others may think. So what does it take to be someone who leads with integrity? It takes consciousness and choice. I wonder how we get to that place of consciousness and choice. One of the ways we discover who we are is by clarifying our values and beliefs. Our values drive our decisions. So the more conscious we are of our values, the better choices we can make. Ever since junior high, I've enjoyed values clarification exercises. So I did one that came from our Theme Circles packet this week called "Counting Your Values on Your Hand." Accepting the caveat that lists of values are rather arbitrary and all positive values are important, it is difficult to prioritize and choose between them when asked. But given this caveat, I followed the exercise and picked my top 5 values from the list. I chose, in alphabetical order, authenticity, balance, creativity, loyalty, and trust. Then I gave the exercise to my best friend and asked him to choose which top values he saw in me. What did my friend see me living out? My friend chose for me compassion, creativity, excellence, financial stability, and self-care. Obviously, I talked to him too much about money. Well, the exercise is supposed to reveal how you see yourself versus how you come across to others. Do they match? If not, what can you learn about yourself? Another way I think of integrity is in terms of matching your insides with your outsides, which can be a lifelong endeavor. As Oscar Wilde quipped, "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken." Easier said than done, Oscar. When I was in my 20s, I worked for 5 years as a civil servant in a big bureaucracy. Most of my job was serving the public, and I tried my best to help people navigate through the red tape to access what they needed. My sense of fairness was frustrated many times in that job and often came into conflict with the institution's practice of bumping VIPs and their relatives to the front of the line. But it was the lack of living out the mission of the organization that really got my blood boiling. I spoke up many times to try to bring our practices in line with our mission. And when I resigned my position in order to go to seminary, one of my coworkers said that with my departure, they were losing the conscience of the office. I'd like to say that I replied to that compliment by saying, "It's up to you now." But I don't recall if I did. Speaking up in the workplace is a risk and a choice for integrity that each individual must decide for themselves. Following one's integrity can be simple one day and complex on another day. The path of integrity can bring your core values into conflict with one another. Sometimes integrity involves keeping a promise, and sometimes it involves breaking a promise. Some decades ago, I made a decision to leave a relationship with a dear friend whose relationship with drinking was more important than their relationship with me, and they wouldn't seek help. The decision was agonizing. My core value of loyalty was in conflict with my value of health. My value of love was in conflict with my value of honesty. In the face of deep loss, and yes, shame, I chose life. Looking back, I see now that I was choosing my integrity. Sometimes our choice for integrity is made in a dark night of the soul. So we often look to others to inspire us and serve as role models. I wonder, what are your role models for integrity? When I think of national leaders who are examples of living integrity, I think of former President Jimmy Carter, who at the age of 95 continues to teach Bible study and build homes for Habitat for Humanity. I think of Representative John Lewis, the 79-year-old civil rights icon and longtime Georgia congressman, who recently revealed he has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He plans to undergo treatment and remain in office. Representative Lewis was the youngest speaker at the March on Washington in 1963 and was arrested over 40 times in the fight for civil rights, surviving many violent attacks, including a vicious beating during the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma in 1965. He said this week, "I've been in some kind of fight for freedom, equality, basic human rights for nearly my entire life. I am ready for the fight. I will go through the treatment and face each day as if it is a new day. I will continue to be hopeful and optimistic." We've been talking about the challenging daily practice of living our values as a people of integrity. But integrity itself is a value. Bob Barrett from NPR's This I Believe said, "I believe in integrity. It's a belief that's tested in those gut-wrenching moments when conflicting values pull me in opposite directions." Back in the 1980s, he said, I was in a training session for mental health workers who were volunteering to provide counseling to cancer patients who had a terminal diagnosis. Each of us was given 16 index cards and asked to write on each the names of people, abilities, things, and values that we hold dear. In the course of our imagined terminal cancer, We had to surrender various of these cards, or somewhat abruptly have them taken from us. At the end, I had two cards. One read integrity, and the other read my family. How could I choose between these two? Such a choice was unfair and impossible. My initial thought was that I would give up my integrity because I loved my daughters and would want their comfort at my death. But then I realized that dying without integrity might be worse. I drifted back and forth, not wanting to choose. In the end, I uneasily kept the integrity card because I reasoned that if I lost my family, integrity would still be possible. But if I lost my integrity, my life would be without value. In recent months, historical fiction books about World War II and the Holocaust keep finding their way into my hands. I do not know why. Last week, I finished reading Alice Hoffman's novel, The World That We Knew, set in France during the occupation. It's a story of both Jewish and Gentile families and the choices they make to deal with the Nazi regime. The book jacket reads, "In Berlin, at the time when the world changed forever, a German Jewish mother, Hanni Kohn, knows she has to send her 12-year-old daughter away in order to save her life. Turning to an old woman who is familiar with magic, she finds her way to the daughter of a rabbi who creates a golem, a mystical Jewish creature, sworn to protect Hanni's precious daughter, Leah. Well, I noticed that throughout the story, the character of the golem helps the reader reflect on what it means to be human during a time of terrible cruelty. The golem is not human, but looks like a woman and gradually learns to act like one as she protects Leah on their journey of survival. The division between non-human and human characteristics as they battle inside the golem's breast rests on the ability to notice beauty and feel emotions. The dividing line is the capacity to love someone specific and act on that love, even at great sacrifice. If you had two index cards in your hands at the end of your life, which of your core values would you relinquish, and which would you keep? If we were living in a time of war and great cruelty as we are, what values and behavior would keep our humanity intact? Krista Tippett wrote in her book, Speaking of Faith, "As a journalist, I'm deeply aware of how strangely tricky it is to make goodness seem relevant. As perpetually horrified as we are of terror and brutality and war, we are riveted by them, and we let them define our take on reality. Violent images seem altogether more solid and substantial, more decisive and telling somehow, than kindness, goodness, and lived peace. It is easy to bow down before these images and give in to the despair that they preach. But if I've learned anything," she continues, "it is that goodness prevails, not in the absence of reasons to despair, but in spite of them. If we wait for clean heroes and clear choices and evidence on our side to act, we will wait forever. My radio conversations teach me that people who bring light into the world wrench it out of darkness and contend openly with darkness all of their lives. The environmentalist and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Wangari Maathai is credited with the astonishing accomplishment of planting 30 million trees as founder of the Greenbelt movement. But she fought governments and industrialists and a bitter ex-husband in the process. She became a minister in the new Kenyan administration that was to reverse a history of corruption, but became mired in corruption scandals of its own. Wangari Maathai's grace and wisdom were won through all of this, not despite it. Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., Dorothy Day, none of them were simple, unsullied heroes in a playbook. They were flawed human beings who wrestled with demons in themselves as well as the world outside. The spiritual geniuses of the ages and of the everyday don't let despair have the last word. Nor do they close their eyes to its pictures or deny the enormity of its facts. They say, yes, and they wake up the next day and the day after that to act and live accordingly. So who is your inspiration for living a life of integrity? Is it someone famous or someone close at hand? Perhaps someone sitting near you right now. My guess is that you also inspire others with your choices for integrity. Not every day, not in every situation, but more and more through the days and the years as you practice. Today, as every day, we hold the splendid daylight in our hands, each and every one of us. How shall we spend the light in this new day, this new year, this new decade? What choice shall we make for integrity?
Every week we have the opportunity to practice our values through sharing our resources. Our pledges are at the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, this church shares half of all non-pledged cash in our offering plate with a community organization. This week, we shared the plate with Victory Garden Initiative. In this way, we commit our resources in line with our belief that this congregation is interdependent with the world beyond these walls. May the practice of giving bring us joy. The offering will now be gratefully received.
Thank you so much. Will you rise and body your spirit for a responsive reading printed in your order of service? This is by Robert T. Weston. I'll begin. A year is gone. It matters not when it began, for it has ended now.
There were other years, and some began with birthday, and some with death.
Some with one day of the month, and some with another. Some began with a song, and others with a lament.
But today I start another year, whatever the month or season, it is what lies before me that concerns me.
There will be decisions and tasks. There will be drudgery, achievement, and defeat.
There will be joy and grief, all the raw stuff of experience, waiting for me to shape the fashion as I will, and it will never become just as I planned.
However it may appear to others, I can turn it to knowledge and wisdom or folly. If it be hard, I can make of it strength. It may become bone, sinew, and steel, or ashes and waste.
Someone might say, it all depends on what the year may bring, but what I make of it depends on me.
Let's join in singing hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.